3D graphics, the biggest revolution in the entertainment industry. Movies went from practical effects to CGI, animated movies followed along, and games went from 2D to 3D, like Mario 64, Virtua Fighter, and the greatest of them all, Gex. But why does Donkey Kong have hot dogs for fingers? Why is Kazuya built like a Power Ranger toy? In this video, I want to talk about the limitations of 3D animation in the 90s and why they led to game characters being built in separate pieces. Mario 64 is a great example, right? As soon as you turn on the console, bam! You're greeted with Mario's head in 3D, my man! Mario went from this to this. You knew right away you were in for something special. And you could even play as a 3D animator by controlling his face. However, when you start the game, the difference between title screen Mario and in-game Mario is huge. The continuous one-piece Mario is now broken down into smaller pieces. That Pixar quality animation was no longer there. Speaking of Pixar, did you know they did the same thing with Toy Story? Characters were broken down into smaller pieces so that animating them would actually be possible. The aliens in the claw machine scene is the most in-your-face example. But why is that? Meet what I call the Exodia of 3D animation. 3D modeling, lighting/rendering, texturing/shading, animation, and the missing piece, the hardest one to achieve, rigging. What is rigging and what's so hard about that, I hear you say? First of all, rigging is the art of turning a character into a digital puppet that can be animated for movies and games. And what's so hard about it? Well, it's actually not that hard for a myth like myself. You go to this 3D program, you place the joints inside the character's arm, apply the rig, and bam! You have something that is a fucking piece of shit. And this is 2021, my guy. Imagine rigging a character in 1995. Animators at the time put their thinking cap on and saw that if you separate the character where they articulate, you could actually achieve better results. The only problem here is making a human character look believable with this method. Pixar's decision to make a story about toys was no accident. Excuse me, Shaolim, actually Toy Story had human characters in it. Yes, not so myth viewer, but look at Sid. The human character that has the most amount of screen time in Toy Story. His rig is so broken that you can see his wrist breaking, eyelid penetrating his face, corner of his mouth stretched too thinly, arm penetrating itself, the leg clipping through his hip, and a neck that would terrify any TikTok chiropractor. And this is not me shitting on Toy Story. It's actually amazing that they pulled it off. But the game industry had a different answer to rigging. They looked at their incomplete Exodia and said, "Fuck rigging, I don't need this shit. I can do a lot with what I have." Rare was working on Donkey Kong using the same computers and technology that Pixar was using. But they didn't rig our boy DK like Pixar rigged Sid. They rigged him more like one of the aliens. You could see the separation of the joints in the promos and cover art, but in gaming, how the fuck are you supposed to notice the hot dog fingers when Donkey Kong sprites looked like this? Also, fun fact, the rhino in Donkey Kong Country's cover art has his chest clipping through his mouth as a result of having it all in separate pieces. Now there's a fact you can use to impress the ladies at nightclubs. Thank me later. I know I was goofy on Tekken earlier, but my guy, Tekken probably made the best use of 3D in video games back then. It was not the first 3D fighting game, the first being Virtua Fighter. Namco seemed to like this game so much that they hired the designer of Virtua Fighter and made him the director of Tekken. Virtua Fighter was groundbreaking, but the polygons and separation of the joints were extremely noticeable. There was a lot to be improved, and improvements were definitely made. The characters were designed in a similar fashion, but what makes the graphics of Tekken 1 stand out was how they masterfully textured the characters' joints. It's nearly impossible to notice the separation. Things are more noticeable during the cutscenes though, but they add to the charm of the game. And shout out to the talented artist who rigged Kazuya's smile. You are a legend. Except for forgetting to attach his leg. What the fuck? Now you know why the characters were built in separate pieces, but there was one game, however. One game that rivaled Pixar. Rivaled rigging. One game that looked at the missing part of the 3D Exodia and went above and beyond to find it. The one and only who dared to not separate the characters in pieces. I'm obviously talking about the greatest 3D game of all time, Gex.
Man, this place smells like ducks.
Piece of
Greatest
shit.
fucking game.
Myth.